I just wanted to start with one small thing around context setting, right? That, we all understand growing business, why it's important. Nobody needs to explain that. But sometimes we wonder, why is it important to export as a country, and why is it important to go global, right? I think just to understand that through an example, if I were to ask you, if any of you is running here a business, right, a manufacturing business, anybody here who manufactures something? ठीक है, आप क्या बनाते हैं सर? Electronics, right? So great. So if we were to say कि हम सब ये रूम में हैं और अभी हम इस रूम को बंद कर देते हैं दरवाजा, राइट? इसके बाद ये जो सारे हैं काफ़ी अच्छे वेल टू डू लोग हैं, तो अब हम कहते हैं कि ये आपका कैप्टिव मार्केट है, अब कोई बाहर से आके इस मार्केट में नहीं बेच पाएगा, आप जो भी बनाते हैं आपकी मोनोपोली है इस मार्केट में बेचने की। अब आप बताइए आप कंपनी को कितना बड़ा कर सकते हैं, अपने आप समझ सकते हैं, राइट? तो हम जब इंडिया की बात करते हैं, वी आर अ बिग कंट्री, बट बेसिकली जब हम ये कहते हैं कि हम सिर्फ अपने डोमेस्टिक मार्केट में बेचेंगे, वी आर डूइंग लाइक दैट कि हम अपना रूम बंद कर देते हैं। बट फैक्ट ऑफ द मैटर इज कि वर्ल्ड के मार्केट में आउटसाइड ऑफ फूड हम दुनिया का 2% मार्केट है। तो जब हम ये कहते हैं कि हम सिर्फ इंडिया में बेचेंगे, हम बेसिकली कह रहे हैं कि हम 98% मार्केट की तरफ देखेंगे भी नहीं, सिर्फ अपने 2% मार्केट की तरफ देखेंगे। इसमें हम अपनी सरकार से बोलेंगे इंपोर्ट ड्यूटी बढ़ा दो, हमको प्रोटेक्ट कर लो, और हम ये 2% से रिच होने की कोशिश करेंगे। प्रॉब्लम ये है कि 2% वैसे छोटा नहीं है, पर हमारे पास दुनिया की 20% वर्कफोर्स है। तो 20% वर्कफोर्स 2% मार्केट में बेच के कभी रिच नहीं हो सकती है। सो आई थिंक दैट इज द रीजन व्हाई वी इंडिविजुअली एज कंपनी एंड कलेक्टिवली एज अ कंट्री need to think about going global, competing, and we have people here who run some of the biggest global corporations as well. So I think with that I'll pass on, right? तो अब जब हम globalization की बात करते हैं, so you usually and generally growing, we face kind of 4 or 5 kind of challenges. So let me put out there, and I'll just go one by one, and maybe you can pick one of your favorite things and talk about your experience कि ये कोई SME कैसे इससे deal कर सकता है, right? So clearly when we talk about growing, scaling, number one challenge is around access to finance. So how can an SME, what creatively they can do? We had a full session on that using IPO as a route, but any ideas around how to access finance, thoughts? That's one. Second is access to market, particularly important if one wants to go global, exports. Market mein, how can we go? We don't have ability to deploy a sales team in every country. So what are the opportunities like e-commerce technology? Can we use something to go global on access to market? Third is, access to technology, mentorship, new ideas, organization, right? So any of those things. And fourth is just navigating the complex ecosystem, because our country is a difficult place to run a business. It's easy for large companies to hire talent which will manage all the regulatory stuff. But for a small company managing the environment, कोई experience है. So Jaspreet ji, आपसे शुरू करते हैं. What are your thoughts on any of these areas, your experience, and what would you advise?
Yeah, so am I audible? Okay. I come from Google, so I can only talk about technology and how technology can help you move across boundaries. Now, boundaries can be as simple as a city boundary, or maybe just one shop and replicating that to 10 different shops, or it can be one manufacturing unit replicating it to 100 manufacturing units. Now, the problem which I see, or the fundamental difference between something which is limited to one unit or one space versus something which is spread across the globe, maybe spread across different countries, maybe spread across different cities, is that you cannot be there physically, right? So you have to replicate yourself first. And now that's not humanly possible, right? That is where technology can drive a lot of things, but technology cannot be let alone to run, right? Which also means there's a fundamental need of having trust on your employees first. Because without you trusting your employees, you literally have to travel to every city every day. Which essentially means that आप अगर मुझ पे विश्वास नहीं करोगे, if you do not trust the decisions which I am taking while I'm there at maybe a shop floor, maybe I'm there at one of your retail outlet, and I'm taking some decision myself, and if you do not trust me, you cannot replicate that business to 10 different locations. Now, technology can do a lot of these things by building processes, by having tools and bringing information at your handsets and everything, right? But fundamentally, it boils down to the integrity of the employee as well. That I, as a human being, should not be looking at shortcuts, which everybody knows, right, happens in everyday life. But to scale even outside of the city, needs the same fundamentals and the same technology stacks and the same rules, whether it is within the city or outside the city or outside the country as well. Now, I work with some customers which we were talking about IPOs just a couple of minutes back, right? I've personally seen a lot of companies running their entire business on WhatsApp. Everybody's sharing their company information internally, chatting among themselves, formal and informal conversations, right? It is pretty easy, pretty convenient to use, but I've also seen companies' financial details also coming out on those WhatsApp groups. And I've personally seen a company who was about to launch an IPO, and they realized that all their financials are already spreading across. And that company is still waiting for it even after 3 years. So it boils down to not just the technology stack, but the trust you have on your employees and the trust which employees have on you. Because they're working with sensitive information every day. And that sensitive information is available every day, every time on your handset these days. So how do you make sure that when you try to think of 10x growth, the 10x issues will also come up?
That's great, Jaspreet. I think you have touched upon two very important things, technology and trust. Technology we all talk about, but trust is probably, this is the first time you would have heard how important it is to create a culture of integrity and trust. Both go hand in hand because trust can't be a one-way street. So creating a culture where there is high premium on integrity, and then the company can create that environment when you can trust the employees, only then you can scale. In fact, a lot of people say, there is some research on this. The reason India was, कहते थे ना हम कि हम सोने की चिड़िया थे, but we lost out. We were the world's largest economy, but we lost out. Why? Because we made finest handmade carpets. We made finest handmade guns, but we could not mass produce. Because fine handmade बनाने के लिए one person is enough. You need great art and one person का head knowledge. But to mass produce, you need ability to get people together. And when you need collaboration, you need trust and you need integrity. So I think, how do you build culture in that? That's the foundation of any great companies. On that note, I will come to you, Sharos, on your business, Meena Bazaar, if you can talk about it, and what you have seen from your perspective as the cornerstone of scaling or even going global.
Hi. So I think in continuation with what Jaspreet ji is saying, giving playground to your employees, but with the strong processes, so that your core information of the company will not leaked out, or it will not going to be, what I can say, exploited. It is more. It is the most important thing in any of the organization. But yes, you have to trust your employees. You have to give the playground to let them play with that area. Secondly, coming on to the expansion part, what we are doing right now is expanding what stores numbers we have in 2022. We have doubled the number in 2023 already. And now we are exploring things for globally as well. So what right now what we are doing, we have an e-commerce website called meenabazaar.com. We taking out the data from last 7 or 8 years, and it will be a driven process strategy where we can, machine will going to tell me that yes, your first store should be in Dubai or in Canada or in UK. So again, technology is again playing an important role in selecting that down that global country where I can put up a new store or first store of Meena Bazaar. So that's how we are evolving with the data, with the machine learning, and with the AI. So this is how we are running right now.
I'll come back to you on other elements of the scaling. It's a complex business, but let's hear from all the panelists first. So Paritosh, coming to you, what would you like to say from your experience of scaling? What was the most important thing in your scaling journey so far, and more importantly, what do you think will be important going forward?
Sure. So सबसे पहले नमस्कार आप सभी को. मेरा नाम पारितोष शर्मा है and I'll set a very quick context. मैं MBA Plus नाम का एक बिजनेस स्कूल चलाता हूँ जहाँ पे हम हिंदी भाषा में भारत देश के टियर 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 शहरों में हज़ारों लोगों को हिंदी भाषा में बिजनेस करना सिखाते हैं अपने ऑनलाइन कोर्सेज के द्वारा. Now, I'll treat this as my MBA Plus mini lecture right now, right? तो मैं आप लोगों के फ़ायदे की बात करूँगा, नॉट मेरे फ़ायदे की. आई थिंक इस सेशन से पहले एक सेशन हुआ था जिसमें बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग एक वर्ड यूज़ किया गया था फंडिंग के दौरान, को लेवरेज, राइट? तो सबसे पहली चीज़ आप लोगों को अपना बिजनेस ग्रो करने के लिए, सिर्फ ग्रोथ, आई विल नॉट टॉक अबाउट स्केल, क्योंकि मैंने अभी तक उतना स्केल नहीं किया है, हम सिर्फ 1.5 साल पुरानी कंपनी है, और स्केल की मेरी डेफिनेशन कुछ और ही डिफरेंट है। ऑफकोर्स स्केल इज़ ह्यूज, स्केल इज़ मैसिव, राइट? एक भारत जैसे देश में रहकर, ऑफकोर्स 140 करोड़ लोगों के देश में आप स्केल हैज़ अ डिफरेंट डेफिनेशन। सो ग्रोथ के लिए सबसे पहली चीज़ लेवरेज पे ध्यान दीजिए, और लेवरेज 4 चीज़ों का होता है, जिसको मैं कहता हूँ PTMT, विच इज़ पीपल, टाइम, मनी एंड टेक्नोलॉजी। लोग, पैसा, समय और टेक्नोलॉजी, बस यही 4 चीज़ें हैं जिसको आप लेवरेज कर सकते हो, राइट? जैसे आज मुकेश अंबानी जी कर सकते हैं, फॉर एग्जाम्पल, राइट? इन मैनी वेज। सो दैट्स नंबर 1। सो अगर आप लेवरेज नहीं कर रहे हैं तो आप वैसे भी ग्रो नहीं कर रहे हैं, इट फंडामेंटली गोज विदाउट सेइंग। एंड लेवरेज कैसे करेंगे? लेवरेज के लिए आपको कोई बहुत बड़ी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन होने की जरूरत नहीं है। आज जैसे मेरा वेंचर है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल, मैं ऑनलाइन पढ़ाता हूँ। आज हमारी कंपनी में फंडामेंटली सिर्फ 2 लोग हैं, सिर्फ 2 फुल टाइम एम्प्लॉइज हैं, और बाकी हम क्या करते हैं, आज 8,500 लोग हैं जिन्होंने जो पे करके हमारे कोर्सेज लेते हैं पूरे भारत देश के अंदर, राइट? और करोड़ों मिनट की वीडियोस देखी जाती हैं फेसबुक, यूट्यूब पे, एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट, ऑल विदाउट स्पेंडिंग एनी मनी, बाय द वे। इसको कहते हैं लेवरेज। तो आप लेवरेज कीजिए मीडिया को, आप लेवरेज कीजिए सोशल मीडिया को, आप लेवरेज कीजिए PTMT को। दैट्स नंबर 1। नंबर 2 इज, क्योंकि आपने सर ग्रोथ की बात की, तो वन वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट विच वॉज पॉइंट नंबर 2, दैट यू सेड मार्केट, राइट? सो हाउ डू यू गो टू मार्केट फास्टर? आपको, जैसे सर ने बोला कि मैं इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स का बिजनेस करता हूं, तो आपको 2 चीज़ें बहुत ज़रूरी हैं समझनी, 2 D समझ लीजिए। पहला D है डिमांड, दूसरा D है डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन। आप जो भी काम करें, सबसे पहले ये बात समझ जाइए उसकी डिमांड कितनी है तो हर चीज़ की डिमांड, आइसक्रीम की भी है और कुल्फी की भी है, राइट? लेकिन फंडामेंटली डिमांड कितनी है वो समझना बहुत ज़रूरी है। दूसरा है डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन। अगर डिमांड है तो क्या मेरे पास उस डिमांड तक पहुंचने की ताकत है? डू आई हैव दैट डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कैपेबिलिटी? क्योंकि बहुत सारे बिजनेस ओनर्स गलती यहीं पे कर जाते हैं, दैट डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन बहुत महंगी पड़ जाती है बाद में, राइट? आपको पहले लगता है जी मैंने गूगल पे मान लीजिए 100 रुपये खर्च किए एड्स लगाने में, बट वो 100 होता नहीं है, वो 1000 कब पहुंच जाएगा आपको पता नहीं लगेगा। सो वंस योर कैक फंडामेंटली ग्रोज, आपका रिटेंशन बहुत कम हो जाता है ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम, राइट? सो यू हैव टू फंडामेंटली चेक दैट आउट। एंड मेरा लास्ट थॉट आप लोगों को बहुत सिंपल है। अपना बिजनेस जब आप ग्रो करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, 1 से 2 जा रहे हैं, या 2 से 5 या 5 से 10, सिर्फ एक चीज़ पे ध्यान दीजिए, जिस पर मैं भी हमेशा ध्यान देता हूँ और सभी लोगों को बोलता हूँ, विच इज़ 1 KPI। जनरली हम बिजनेस ओनर्स ना फैंसी डैशबोर्ड्स बना के ना हम बड़े खुश होते हैं, हमें मजा आता है कि यार 10 नंबर है भाई, मजा आ रहा है, फील आ रही है आज, राइट? लेकिन सर ने बहुत अमेजिंग बात बोली। इन्होंने कहा कि मीना बाजार में, अगर आप सबकॉन्शियसली इनका थॉट सुनो, तो इन्होंने कहा कि मीना बाजार को हम लोगों ने 2022 में जितने स्टोर्स थे, 2023 में हमने ऑलरेडी वो नंबर डबल कर दिया है। सो ही स्पोक अबाउट 1 number. He said just 1 number. He could have spoken about 10 more numbers. But subconsciously, as a business head, in his mind, his company has trained him to seek 1 number out, right? So seek that 1 number out for yourself. वो revenue हो सकता है, वो growth हो सकती है, वो people growth, whatever is important for you. So 1 KPI. तो quickly revise कर देते हैं. PTMT, which is leverage. Second is demand and distribution. And third is 1 KPI. मेरे ख्याल से अगर आप ये 3 चीज़ों का मिश्रण बना के रखेंगे, you would fundamentally just grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Paritosh. You packed in lot of advice in a few minutes. Coming to you, Sahil, I think first, why don't you tell us a little bit about Livofy? और अभी आपका जो experience है उसके basis पे, what have you learned about growing a small business?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me as a part of this discussion. Really having a great time learning from fellow speakers as well. So hello everyone, my name is Sahil and I am the founder of Livofy. So we're a healthcare tech company that helps people in remission and sustenance of various chronic ailments like diabetes, thyroid, PCOS, obesity, fatty liver, hypertension through integrative care, which is right nutrition and supplementation. And we leverage technology to be able to do so. So हमारा core is leveraging technology, right processes to help people at scale basically, right? And just topping up on different points that Piyush ji kind of raised and fellow panelists kind of raised, right? So I will share my experience of bootstrapping the company for 2.5 years, going to Shark Tank also. You're also there on Shark Tank, to eventually raising seed capital also. So first of all, I think जो आपने बात की पहले की when should one look to raise capital? We spoke about SME IPOs as a mean to kind of raise capital as well, right? So before how to raise capital, one should exactly know when they should raise capital in the first place, right? So one of the major things that I see entrepreneurs go wrong is including me, that लोगों को लगता है कि business start करते ही capital raise करने की ज़रूरत है, right? So you have to first understand your nature of business. You need to understand ये business bootstrap भी better चलेगा या फिर इसके लिए capital raise करने की ज़रूरत है in the first place basically, right? So that's the first and foremost thing that you really need to kind of think of, right? In my business journey, after 2.5 years of bootstrapping, I realized कि the amount of technology investment that is needed is so high that technology will become a moat या फिर advantage or unfair advantage for me as a business, and that is the point where I decide that I will need to raise capital, right? Again, capital raise करने के भी SME IPO is one way. मैंने private market से capital raise की थी, so we raised about 4.5 to 5 crores in capital, and there are essentially typically three ways to raise capital, and capital can be either through equity where जहाँ अपनी कंपनी की हिस्सेदारी दे रहे हो, it could be through debt where you are liable to pay the money back. Or it could be through a convertible note. Convertible note slightly more technical, but just to put it simply is that it's a debt instrument that converts to equity. Happy to talk offline about it. But in तीन means of capital के purposes जो होते हैं वो different, like purpose align एक होता है कि आपने capital use करने to get your business to invest in technology products or to grow significantly. And second, which Paritosh ji very rightly kind of put, was to get leverage, right? So जब मैंने investment raise की थी, it was a mix of people who could इन्वेस्ट कैपिटल फॉर देयर कैपिटल कि उनके कैपिटल से उसकी लेवरेज होगी, मैं पैसा यूज कर सकता हूँ. बट सेकंड वाज कैपिटल टू गेट डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन, राइट? सो बिकॉज आई एम इन द हेल्थ केयर स्पेस, आई गॉट स्ट्रेटेजिक इन्वेस्टर्स ऑन बोर्ड हु कुड हेल्प मी पार्टनर विद हॉस्पिटल्स, डॉक्टर्स, इंश्योरेंस कंपनीज, सो दे कुड ओपन अप डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन व्हेन कैक्स इवेंचुअली गेट हाई, राइट? सो इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर वन टू नो एक तो आपको कितना पैसा रेज करने की जरूरत है कि नहीं है, राइट? अगर आपको जानना है तो फिर आपको ये देखना है कि आपको कितना रेज करने की जरूरत है, दैट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. एंड द थर्ड इज कौन सा इंस्ट्रूमेंट यूज करना आता है, वो जरूरत है. और चौथी बात ये आती है कि आपको किससे रेज करने की जरूरत है बेसिकली, राइट? हु डू यू वांट टू रेज फ्रॉम, राइट? डू यू जस्ट वांट द मनी फॉर मनी और डू यू वांट द कलर ऑफ मनी टू प्ले इट्स पार्ट एज वेल, राइट? सो जस्ट टॉकिंग अबाउट से फॉर एग्जांपल ग्लोबल एक्सपेंशन, राइट? सो बिफोर आई स्टार्ट माय हेल्थ केयर कंपनी आई वाज वर्किंग इन अ यूएस हेल्थ केयर बेस्ड फर्म, राइट? सो द आइडिया इज दैट इफ फ्रॉम नाउ आई डिसाइड दैट मेरा इंडिया का फुटप्रिंट इज डीप इनफ एंड आई वांट टू गो टू यूएस, my first people to raise would be from the company where I was previously employed, who can certainly help me with distribution outside of India, right? So strategic investors are great people to help you with foot in the door in terms of opening doors for you, getting the right conversations in place for you so that you don't have to work and your product can do the talking with the right strategic people, they're there for you basically, right? So these would be my 2 cents which can help you kind of eventually grow your company. So yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sahil. I think you gave some very valuable advice on importance or around raising capital, that you shouldn't just run after money. There are nuances to it. Other than money that we all hear about when people have small businesses in particular is finding people, right? So scaling is all about, right? We talked about trust and so on, but trust तब करोगे जब आपके पास आदमी होगा trust करने के लिए, right? So how do you find the right kind of people who can help you give leverage? Now, for a global corporation, once you have scaled, it's very easy. Everybody wants to work for Google, right? But I mean, obviously the bar keeps going up, but frankly, you always have a queue of people wanting to work, right? And there is ability to pay. But let's talk about a small business, right? When you don't have a brand, when you don't have the ability to pay top dollar, what are the tricks have you used to attract the talent, right? Let's start there. Paritosh, maybe aapne, although you have small full time, but maybe you can talk about it, and I would love to hear from you, Sharaz, as well. Although you're more like a mid-sized scaled up business.
सो आई थिंक यहाँ पे ना मैं हमेशा एक एग्जाम्पल यूज़ करता हूँ जो मैं एक्चुअली प्रैक्टिकली भी यूज़ करता हूँ. तो आप सब लोगों से एक सवाल है मेरा. आपने आज तक, और ये धर्म से जुड़ा नहीं है बट ये प्रैक्टिकल फैक्ट है, किसी भी गुरुद्वारे में या किसी भी मंदिर में लंगर या भोज बंद होते हुए देखा है? नहीं ना? नहीं, एब्सोल्युटली नॉट, राइट? कोविड के समय में बंद नहीं हुए थे. क्यों बंद नहीं हुए थे? तो बहुत सारे लोग इसका एग्जाम्पल देते हैं, भाई पैसा है, ये है, वो नहीं. एक्चुअली संगत सेवा करती है. सो संगत इज अ हिंदी वर्ड, आप इसको अंग्रेजी में बोल लीजिए तो कम्युनिटी, राइट? आई मीन इफ यू वर टू टॉक इन मोर फैंसी टर्म्स. सो किसी भी छोटे बिजनेस ओनर को अगर टॉप डॉलर्स जो नहीं पे कर सकता, उसको अच्छे लोग लेकर आने हैं ना, तो सबसे पहले ट्रस्ट का एक बेसिक मैनिफेस्टेशन होता है जिसको कहते हैं संगत या कम्युनिटी. क्या आप में वो ताकत है, क्या आपके मिशन में वो ताकत है कि लोग आपसे जुड़ेंगे या नहीं? सो फॉर एग्जाम्पल, लास्ट ईयर when I left my job where I was fundamentally working, right, मेरे पास नेक्स्ट एक सैलरी का ऑफर था जो बहुत ही अच्छा था, लाइक बहुत ही ज़्यादा अच्छा था, राइट? और मेरे पास जो दूसरी चॉइस थी वो ये थी कि सो आई एम 38 टुडे, क्या मैं अपना बाकी सारा जीवन इस देश को पढ़ाने में लगा दूँ, राइट? सो 2 choices were there. And of course, the first choice, my family was very clear, यार पहली choice ले, मतलब अच्छा खासा पैसा मिल रहा है, क्या पागल हो गया तू, right? But when the mission, the calling was much more stronger, a lot of people joined together. Phenomenal set of people joined together, right? And by the way, वो लोग पैसा भी देते हैं वो लोग आपकी ग्रोथ में भी हेल्प करते हैं, एग्जैक्टली जस्ट लाइक यू सेड, राइट? उनको आप स्ट्रेटेजिक इन्वेस्टर्स कह लो. सो आप में हिम्मत होनी चाहिए और वो दम होना चाहिए कम्युनिटी बिल्ड करने का. एंड कम्युनिटी बिल्ड तब नहीं होती जब आप अपना बिजनेस शुरू करते हो. कम्युनिटी बिल्ड तब से होती है जब आपके पास सपना शुरू होता है. जिस दिन सपना लेना शुरू कर दिया ना, उस दिन वैसे लोगों के साथ मिलना शुरू कर दो. Such that the day you will start your business, at least you would have those 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 or maybe 1,000 people. और इसका सबसे अच्छा तरीका आपको बताऊं, कुछ भी नहीं, जैसे आज इस हॉल में बैठे हो, अपना फोन उठाओ, एक सेल्फी वीडियो शूट कर दो. Tell the world, go on YouTube, go on Facebook, tell the world that you want to do this someday. कभी तो करोगे जाके, right? आप देखोगे that आज वो आपने बीज बोया होगा, अगले 3 महीने में, 6 महीने, 9 महीने, whenever you start your business, you would grow. I by the way did this. So I started with Facebook live sessions almost about 2 years back. मैं Facebook live किया करता था, 4 लोग देखते थे मेरे Facebook live. एक दिन मैं Facebook live कर रहा था, 20 लोगों ने देखा, मैंने कहा भाई साहब 5x की ग्रोथ हो गई, राइट? और आज जब लोग देखते हैं, so of course there are thousands and thousands of people that watch any live session. So where I'm coming from is, शुरुआत तो छोटी होगी, लेकिन अब वो हज़ारों लोग, ज़रूरी नहीं है मेरे पेड यूजर्स हों, लेकिन वो हज़ारों लोग आज मैं कहूँ तो काम करने को भी तैयार होंगे एट अ लेसर सैलरी, राइट? सो अगर आप संगत बिल्ड कर लो तो आपका लंगर चलता रहेगा. एंड दैट्स माय फंडामेंटल थॉट प्रोसेस.
ग्रेट थॉट. आई थिंक तो पहला चीज़ तो ये है कि आपको अपने आप में, अपने आइडिया में और अपने बिजनेस में खुद बिलीफ होना चाहिए, राइट? यू शुड बी विलिंग टू ईट द फूड यू आर गोइंग टू प्रिपेयर इन योर किचन, राइट? और वो भरपूर कॉन्फिडेंस होना चाहिए कि पहले दिन अगर कोई भी नहीं आया तो भी आप दूसरे दिन भी अपनी दुकान खोलेंगे, राइट? तो वो कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं होगा तब तक कोई आएगा नहीं. So they are also watching you कि आपको खुद पे कितना भरोसा है before you ask them to trust you. So any ideas from you, Sahil? आप भी एक लोगों को हायर करने के लिए स्ट्रगल करते होंगे, आप क्या करते हैं?
Yes, absolutely. I think काफ़ी सारी चीज़ें हैं जो मैंने सीखी हैं, and interestingly हमें hiring challenge नहीं हुआ basically. People have taken big pay cuts to join us. So and I think there are multiple things that I have learned. And I've spoken to people who have joined us कि यार हमने क्यों join कर लिया basically, right? कुछ तो सोचा होगा basically, right? So there are a couple of things that I've seen as a repeated factor that people look at when they join, especially the first few hires, right? So first is they want to sense authenticity in the person, right? They want to see that is the person really honest about the problem statement? Is the person really honest that he generally cannot pay right now at an early stage, right? That is one thing that they really want to see, right? Second thing that I've seen is that people also look for the fact that has the person had proxies of excellence in their past, which can make the person trustable enough right now, right? So whether it could be a good college, whether it could be good work experience, or whether it could be things that you've done in your past that can speak for themselves, that can make the person trust you basically, right? So that I think is very important. Third thing that I would say is depth in the problem statement, right? So I feel that whether it is depth in terms of how big this opportunity is, how big can this become, are you able to communicate that well enough or not? And most importantly, good storytellers always are able to get good hires. Are you a good enough storyteller that you can actually communicate things in a very top-down manner that people think of you for days even after you have told them, right? So they're actually thinking of other offers, but the only person that they can think of you is you because you told a good story. And fourth is that does the employee generally feel that I can exponentially gain in one of the aspects, and one of the aspects could be the kind of people that this founder is going to attract. I'm going to learn from a lot. Second is, do I have some disproportionate gain in terms of finances, right? So say for example, if somebody's at say a X LPA salary, if I give maybe 5 LPA lesser, right? In exchange for that 5 LPA, do I have maybe an ESOP, a growth for opportunity that 2-3 years down, I see a 10x or 15x return or not, or 20x return or not, right? So I'm very objective to people, especially to senior hires who work with us, that this is the Excel sheet, this is the pay cut that I'm giving it because I can genuinely not do it right now, and they understand. And I say that this is the X amount of ESOP that I gift you that can eventually, give you a 10x or 15x or 20x return about. And I ask them, what is the disproportionate return that you feel for yourself, right? And everybody has their own triggers, right? So if you are going to seek to an employee, before you tell your own story, reverse engineer and ask them what are the things that matter to them, right? So some people say that, hey, I have been in a lot of companies and I've not learned at all, right? And I know for a fact that you know things that I can learn. So learning is the trigger for them. So you get them sold on that, right? Some people say that, hey, I've been growing linearly in my salary. I get a 10-15% appraisal, 20% appraisal. But now I want to aim big. I'm okay with, a 50% cut in my salary, but I want a 20x return, right? So I want to aim big in terms of money, right? And third could be, I want to have a big hierarchy. I want to be known in the long run. And I think you can complement my skill. There are a lot of failed entrepreneurs who come to us and say that, I've tried business in the past. It's not worked for me. Maybe you could be the one complimenting me. I want to be a part of this journey, right? So understand from them first and reverse engineer the right triggers that they want to hear and genuinely believe that, you can actually get you there, right? So I think these 4 or 5 things have always helped us get the right people, at the right points in time, basically. So, yeah.
So what specific trick works could be different for different people in terms of attracting. But I think one thing which is clear is that hiring the top talent, hiring the right talent has to be a top priority. In fact, I remember from my own experience about 20 years back, I was like, an associate in a consulting firm, and the MD of the company, the consulting firm, it was a fairly large consulting firm, and I wanted to move to another firm. And he called me for lunch saying, explain to me, why are you moving? So I told him this, that. So he said, think about it. He called me for lunch 3 times, and he spent time with me, couple of hours each time, trying to understand why I was leaving and why, I should stay and all that. Finally, I told him that, look, you are the MD of this firm. I'm like a junior person in this thing. Why are you wasting time on me, right? Let me go. He said, my only job is to, hold on to people and understand why they want to leave or how I can make them stay. I have spoken to many startup founders, and the most successful ones say that 80% of the time they spend on is just finding, recruiting, getting good talent and keeping them happy. Sales, operations, sab ho jayega. The problem lot of smart entrepreneurs make, the mistake they make is that they think कि ये hiring वगैरह HR का job है. People, इसमें मजा नहीं आता, मुझे business करना है, sales करना है, right? So I think this is one important advice, that to be a successful entrepreneur at the growth journey stage, you have to make hiring your number 1 priority. So I think on that note, let's take a different topic, which is kind of a age, and I particularly wanted to hear from you, Jaspreet. You coming from technology world, right? We all hear about AI, chat GPT and all that. It is intimidating for a lot of small businesses. यार हम इसका क्या करें? मतलब सुनने में बड़ा अच्छा लग रहा है, पर इसका हम क्या कर सकते हैं? What is practical advice you can give to an SME that how can they use the emerging AI technology tools that कहाँ से शुरू करें और क्या use कर सकते हैं वो?
See, AI looks very fascinating, right? 6 महीने पहले शायद मुझे भी नहीं पता था what is large language model, right? Everybody started learning about it. Everybody started hearing about it by the buzzword chat GPT and everything, right? But it just doesn't end there by knowing what is chat GPT and what it can do for you, right? The main and the fundamental question is whether you need it or not, whether you need it at this stage or whether you may need it in future, right? Probably this is a stage wherein if you put in more of your sweat and less of technology sweat, you may be more successful, right? Because whenever we are talking about AI, there is a fundamental risk of your own data getting out of AI hands as well, right? It can hallucinate. It can convince you on something which doesn't even exist, right? Like you may be the president of the United States, right? So the idea is AI will obviously change our lives. It is that same tipping point what we experienced back in 2013, 2014 when smartphones came in India, right? For the first time, when we all moved from Blackberries to Androids and iOS, right? So AI is still at that point. But the whole idea is that, yes, it can fundamentally help any small business man or a small business woman. I have worked with, micro SMEs as well, who don't even know how to write, let's say, a product description themselves. Or they only know their own native languages, but don't know how to translate that in English. Because the search engines will only understand English. They will only know the keywords which are in English. Your customers will probably put in the search words in English only, right? So what about that guy who's sitting probably in Orissa and he wants to sell his product? That is where AI can help you with those very, very basic use cases, like help me write a product description, help me suggest some keywords which will help me sell my product globally, and take, let's say, better photographs of my product, maybe edit my photographs for me, right? Maybe free of cost as well. Those can be very, very basic things for which AI can be used by anybody today, right? Whenever we are talking about an organization which has grown in size, an organization which has probably, let's say, 100 people, 200 people, that's when you have to put in boundaries of AI as well. That whether AI is allowed to do specific things or not. Like, I remember this large electronic giant, one of the sales team, they uploaded an Excel sheet on ChatGPT and asked ChatGPT to create a presentation or a summary of that Excel sheet. That Excel sheet had all the part numbers of every product which they owned. That part numbers got, or I should simply say, all those details are publicly available today. You can actually do that search yourself, right? Their entire electronic giant had to block ChatGPT the next day itself. So there are positives of using AI and there are repercussions of using AI as well. Maybe for a small business owner, it might not make sense to go full on. But yeah, there will be use cases for a small business owner versus the use cases for large business enterprise as well. They are totally different.
Maybe a small business owner can ask ChatGPT, what can I use ChatGPT for? So on that note, Shahruz, so, every small business, right? Like think of it, right? Somebody opens a shop. Everybody dreams कि आज मैंने एक दुकान खोली है, कल को मेरी इसकी चेन बनाऊंगा. एक रेस्टोरेंट खोला है, इसको कल को मैकडॉनल्ड्स की तरह मेरे लाखों रेस्टोरेंट होंगे, right? And make it a corporate. But we all know कि 99% of businesses don't go from one shop to a retail chain, one restaurant to a restaurant chain. Or when they try to scale, they start losing money. They are able to run one successfully, but they're not able to run 5 successfully, right? From your experience, and we talked about a couple of things, technology, trust, so on. But आप थोड़ा और इसमें बता सकते हैं कि since you have a chain, a retail chain which runs successfully, multi-location, क्या करना होता है to go from 1 to 10? किन चीज़ों का ध्यान रखना है?
So we are on 52 stores right now, and by 2024 March, we will be crossing almost 70 stores. So that's the speed we are on right now, but that's not the reality 2 years back down the line when we are struggling in COVID, because whatever be the stores we have that been shut down in COVID, and lots of employees we are having a burden on that, on the company actually. So the important thing is the process. Process is the key to taking down this brand to that height. होता क्या है कि हम लोग प्रोसेस एक स्टोर को चलाने के लिए बनाते हैं, बट हमें बनाना है कि हमारा विजन क्या है बेसिकली. अगर हमें 100 स्टोर खोलने हैं तो हमारा प्रोसेस भी उसी हिसाब से अलाइन होना चाहिए. वी कांट रन अ बिजनेस when we draw a process for one store, it can't be what I can say replicate to the 200 stores. So we have to draw a process and evolve that process time by time. So what we have done is like we use lots of video in terms of educating our employees. So छोटा भी कोई process होगा हम उसका वीडियो बना देते हैं. उसका वीडियो बनाकर हम लोग we have a WhatsApp group, mentor group. So we posted that video on that particular group so that everybody in the organization can see that thing. And because visualization is the fastest way to learn the things, rather than giving them the theory of papers, so वो काम नहीं करेगा. So you have to create a visualization of every process, a minute process. हम लोग हायरिंग में भी यही करते हैं. सो फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर हमें कंटेंट राइटर हायर करना है, सो वी क्रिएट अ वीडियो कि यार हमें ये चाहिए, हमारा ये एम है मीना बाजार का. सो अगेन द कनेक्शन दैट इज गोइंग टू बी मेड आफ्टर दैट वीडियो ना, वो कभी भी नहीं बन पाएगा. आप अगर व्हाट आई कैन से कि उसको अगर थियोरेटिकली अगर हम देखें, रिज्यूमे देख के अगर हम उसको हायर करेंगे तो वो कभी भी कनेक्शन नहीं बन पाएगा. सो दैट्स द मेन इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग विच वी रियली टेक इन टू कंसिडरेशन.
No, Shahruz, I love that point you talked about, this thing around process and scaling. It reminded me, somebody told me, right, कि अगर आपको हाथी बनाना है, तो you can't say that elephant is just a large mouse. So you can't take the process which works at the mouse level and say कि अब मैं 1000 चूहे खड़ा कर दूंगा तो उनको जोड़ के हाथी बना दूंगा. You have to create a completely different blueprint if you are thinking scale. The process which works at scaled up level.
एक इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज़ मैं इसमें ऐड करना चाहूँगा, ओनर्स, बिजनेस ओनर्स का जो छोटे SMEs हैं, उनका प्रॉब्लम ये है कि वो ये चाहते हैं कि सेल भी मैं कर लूँ, मार्केटिंग भी मैं कर लूँ, ऑपरेशंस भी मैं चला लूँ, सारी चीज़ें मैं चला लूँगा. वो सामने वाला जो मैंने रखा है ना, दैट इज़ अ डमी. डोंट डू दैट. प्लीज़ delegate that thing to that person, because ultimately you are a strategy maker. You don't have to involve in all these day-to-day, what I can say, operations or sales and marketing kind of a thing.
Exactly. And that's why we come back to the point that therefore your job at that point to be finding more people like you, more of those sales people who can do the job, more of those marketing people, etc. And thinking, because yes, you can run one shop being everything from front manager to operations, but you cannot run 100 shops being everything.
Thank you, everyone. I request you all to kindly come forward for a group picture also.